Between now and then, if the court wants to adjust its scheduling, it will, but this is a special proceeding involving Dr. White, just as it's a special proceeding involving Mr. Alford. Their appearance is necessary at this point, unless we go to the next step. Okay? Thank you.
Conrad Murray in handcuffs in the courtroom, making the transition from doctor to convicted killer. There goes Conrad Murray. He's been remanded. All this after the jury renders its verdict. There are the cuffs. He was free throughout this trial, no longer free. Dr. Conrad Murray. Today, the jury speaking loudly and speaking clearly inside that courtroom in Los Angeles. Dr. Conrad Murray, Dr. Conrad Murray is the man who killed Michael Jackson. Let me go outside the courthouse right now. Jane Valez Mitchell joins us with some reaction from outside. Jane, incredible intensity inside the courtroom. What's happening outside the courthouse?
Unbelievable scene, Vinny. People praying, crying, hugging. If I could ask you to move, sir, because we're just getting a sense of it, just a crush of humanity. Oh my gosh, there's a baby in here, which is not a good idea. A woman fainted. A moment ago, a woman fainted and had to be taken away by ambulance. It's an unbelievable... And crying, and Sheila, you've been here since the very beginning. Your reaction?
I'm so happy. I just thank God that we have justice today. I'm so excited. Michael deserves justice. His family deserves justice. And the fans will deserve justice. I came all the way from Memphis, Tennessee, and I'm so happy that that rat is going to jail.
Thank you, Sheila. And I got to tell you, if you could kind of move forward, Joe, I know it's a crush of people, but this is what's happening. It's happening, and we're showing it to you. So we're just showing you the hugging and the crying. What? Talk to me.
We are so happy that Murray finally got handcuffs on him. Michael got handcuffs for a crime he didn't commit. This time, Murray gets it.
He's crying. There's a woman here crying.
It's a friend. She's really emotional. We're so happy about the handcuffs. This means a lot. This man is going to jail.
Now, take a look at some of the other folks here. All these people I have gotten to know over the course of these 22 days of testimony. Patty, if you could move to the right. I would suggest you have your little baby move. It's a crush for the child. I really suggest you have the child move. Patty, we can come over to the right, Joe, for a second. Patty, you've been here from the start.
Yes, I have. He just got cuffed. Thank you. Justice has been served. I don't even know what to say. I'm just so thankful. It's just such a release of emotions. The man needed to go to jail, and he's on his way. Yes! 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 Justice for MJ!
Kudos to the prosecution team. A great job, Walgren and Brazil. You guys rock. Thank you.
You raise an important point. The DA's office in Los Angeles has had a hard time with celebrity cases, any celebrity cases. This actually turns the tide.
Yes, it does. It's about time. Justice was served, and it was served the right way. And again, prosecution.
Unbelievable job. Hats off to you.
You did a great job.
Great job, guys.
You did excellent.
Listening here.
It's justice, phenomenal, but you did a great job. You and Ryan.
Walgren! 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 There you have it, in the crush of humanity, but it's what's happening. Back to you.
Jane Valez Mitchell outside. What I want to play for the folks at home is what happened the moment that word was reached outside that courthouse that Conrad Murray was found guilty of killing Michael Jackson. Take a listen. I want to bring in Dr. Drew. Dr. Drew, first let's start outside the courthouse with what's happening out there with folks crying, fainting, chanting, cheering. Your thoughts?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts, Vinny, and one is this is a curious little moment when we could all glance at the behavior of crowds. It's appropriate that there be jubilation. It's appropriate that there be relief. But let's let it be at that. This is a very sad situation where two lives collided. One man is dead. The other man is going to prison. This is a really sad situation. I would encourage everyone at home to let's all take a deep breath and not behave like a crowd out for a sacrifice. It's good that there's closure. It's good we can put this bus behind us, but I'm not sure that jubilation beyond an initial impression is appropriate. Think about the young people out there contemplating being physicians who might now think twice about that. If they get involved in a case where somebody dies, they now are going to prison. So there's very serious implications of this case. And again, one man dead, other man in prison, a family devastated. This is sad and deserves some solemnity. So let's let those of us at home, let's let this pass with the appropriate, again, solemnity.
Dr. Drew, there's children on both sides here, and let's start first with Michael Jackson's children, Paris, Blanket, and Prince Michael. Your thoughts for how do you handle this whole development with them? Is this something that...
Again, I think that, yes. The good news is that the fact this was a guilty verdict is going to put this thing to rest more quickly, and these children can put it behind them. Something I've been saying all morning is that, you know, we all worried about these kids when Michael used to cart them around in masks and the sheets over their head and whatnot. We wondered what kind of children could these possibly be. And well, I've learned throughout the course of this trial that Michael was a very dedicated father. He had impairments, but he apparently was quite a good father, and I think the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. These kids seem like remarkably lovely young people. Let's let them get on with their lives. They've had a terrific loss. They have a family that's now ready to support them. They need to get on with these things, as so do the rest of us. This is really, you know, when you think about it, you know, my wife just texted me during the verdict and saying that she cried when this act. It's a serious, serious thing, and we all have to remember that.
Just moments ago, folks, if you're just joining us, Dr. Conrad Murray was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. That means Conrad Murray is the man who killed Michael Jackson. Let's take another look at that verdict.
Superior Court of California, Los Angeles County. The people of the state of California plaintiff versus Conrad Robert Murray, defendant. Case number SA 073164. Title of court and cause. We, the jury in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Conrad Robert Murray, guilty of the crime of involuntary manslaughter in violation of Penal Code Section 192, subsection B. Alleged victim, Michael Joseph Jackson, alleged date of June 25th, 2009, as charged in count 1 of the information. This 7th day of November 2011, four-person juror ID number 145, seat number 3. Is this your verdict? Is this your individual and personal verdict? So say you one, so say you all.
Yes. All jurors indicating the affirmative. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you whether this is your individual and personal verdict. I'm going to be asking you individually if this is correct. If it is your individual and personal verdict, say yes. If it is not your individual and personal verdict, say no. Is this your individual?
All right, and with that, Dr. Conrad Murray found guilty by this jury. Gene Cassar, correspondent for In Session over on our sister network, True TV, was inside the courtroom for that moment. Gene, tell us what you saw.
Well, first of all, Vinny, sentencing is November 29th. Conrad Murray remanded immediately into custody. Watched in that courtroom as the handcuffs were put on his wrists, and he was then taken out of that courtroom. I want to impart everything I saw in that very emotional courtroom. The judge admonished the entire gallery before anything began. He didn't want any outbursts. He didn't want outward signs of emotions. He wanted to silence in that courtroom as the jury verdict was delivered. As I watched the jurors enter the courtroom, I initially saw a couple of jurors with smiles on their face toward the alternate jurors who had already come into that courtroom. It was like they missed them, and maybe they felt bad that they couldn't be part of that deliberation. I didn't see one juror look at Conrad Murray. I saw a couple of jurors very quickly to make sure that the family was there. And Vinnie, the family was there. Closest to the jury was Randy Jackson, and then Catherine Jackson, and then Joe Jackson, and then Jermaine Jackson, Jermaine's wife. And then after that, some of their children, and then Rebe Jackson, and then LaToya Jackson. A companion of LaToya's was there, and then several other relatives. There were 15 members of the Jackson family in that courtroom. And Randy had his arm around his mother before that verdict was delivered, and he was massaging her shoulder and making sure she was all right. He was there to protect his mother. When the jury verdict came out, it rang in that courtroom, and I don't know if you heard it, but there were gasps, there were some shrieks, there was emotion that they just couldn't keep inside. It was LaToya, I believe. Rebe was face down as she was listening. Catherine Jackson, the mother of Michael Jackson, very silent, but she got her Kleenex the minute that verdict rang out of guilty, and she very silently cried her tears. The jurors seemed relieved. They were stoic. They were silent. Ed Chernoff began to cry in that courtroom. Conrad Murray, which is farther away from me, seemed a broken man. But everyone in the back row, the fans were quiet, just as the judge had told them to do. But it was emotional, Vinnie, because no one knew what that verdict was going to be before it was read.
Gene, once again, at the moment of the verdict, and I think you mentioned this, I just wanted to clarify it, we could audibly hear a reaction, almost like a yelp, inside that courtroom. Was that from LaToya?
It was from the Jacksons, and I believe it was LaToya. Rebe was looking down, who was next to LaToya. She did not make any sounds, but it was LaToya is what I believe, and it was an innate emotion. She didn't mean for it to come out. It just instantaneously came out. And there was nothing from the back row, which were all the fans that have been so dedicated to the Jacksons and to the Jacksons family. Catherine Jackson, very silent and stoic.
Gene Casares was inside the courtroom. Let's go to Ryan Smith, who's in Los Angeles. Ryan, I want to show you a shot of Conrad Murray, something that we haven't seen, which is Conrad Murray in handcuffs. He's been free throughout this entire ordeal. This is a guy who has not been locked up, but today was remanded by the judge. A shocking moment to a shocking day here, Ryan.
Absolutely, Vinnie, and I think that was one of the first times, if not the only time, we've seen Dr. Murray absolutely stunned in court as the judge was speaking to him. He was being handcuffed right then and there. And I think, you know, when you look at this moment, I think a lot of people out there are saying, finally, justice for Michael, finally, a resolution. Dr. Murray, it's amazing to me that throughout all of this, with all the emotion in court, he's the one who sat the most stoic. In many ways, I don't know if it was shock, I don't know if it was just being stunned, but in that courtroom, he's about as stone-faced as he has been, except when he was being handcuffed. I do not think he expected to be remanded. I thought maybe he thought he could stay out of jail until his sentencing, but he's going to stay in jail. Imagine not only the effect on the Jackson family, but on Dr. Murray. He now will stay in jail until he's sentenced. But the family, I wonder, Vinnie, if this is closure for them. I wonder if they feel like, at least in some small way, they can move on from this now that someone has been held accountable for the death of Michael Jackson. No question about it. This is one of the most dramatic moments in this trial, and no question about it, it's a memory that we're going to live with for a long, long time.
Guilty is the verdict. Conrad Murray, now a convicted killer, the man responsible for the death of Michael Jackson.